Welcome to Meaningful Mornings. Please relax the body, enjoy the breath, and quieten the mind. We are offering our inner and outer strength to a seeker in our community from Toronto who is not doing well right now. Sahanao Bhunaktu. May we all enjoy and enjoy. In Bhagavad Gita's chapter 10, if you can visualize seeing Sri Krishna from a macro perspective, seeing him from far away. In chapter 11, we zoom in from the macro to the micro. We can see the eyes of Sri Krishna, the pores of Sri Krishna. All of those details are shared in chapter 11. Now zoom in more. In chapter 12, it is not to be a macro or a micro narrative, but a me narrative. I don't want to just see Sri Krishna. I want to see me in Sri Krishna. Do you see the connection between these chapters? This is the same methodology of teaching in the Upanishad. One of the Mahavakyas, or the great teachings, shares Prajnana Brahma, which means infinity is there. Another one shares Atma Brahma, which means infinity is here. And another great teaching shares Aham Brahma. Infinity is not there or here. Infinity is I. From the macro to the micro to the me, the consistency with which our maps teaches, very inspiring. For those in our Vedanta and Bhagavata course, the theme for section 10 is Ashraya, which means to surrender. And the theme for the 11th section is Mukti, which means to rise. Shri Krishna has been sharing, if you surrender, then I will lift you up. This lifting up, this rising, is a magnifying also. To feel the me in Shri Krishna. For those who read the rad that was posted on social media on Thursday, Bhagwan Rama's Jayanti, the quote from Pujya Swami Chinmayananda was sharing this simply. We tend to act and then surrender. His message is surrender and then act. And I hope all of you saw the image with this rad. This is actually a magnified portion of a large painting that Ragini has completed. Going with this theme of feeling me in Sri Krishna. Now in the first verses of this chapter, feeling me in Sri Krishna is such an obvious truth. If one comes to understand and appreciate that you're living in Sri Krishna, wouldn't it be natural to live for Sri Krishna? Anything you're living in, you have to live for. In Bhagavata, Sri Krishna shares with Rishi Uddhava, those who have a sattvic personality, they live in the forest. Those who have a rajasic personality, they live in the city. Now, when we think of this, then all of us are condemned to being rajasic. Living doesn't happen physically, it happens mentally. This is an attitude. And that's why in an earlier verse I had shared, for us to keep our head in the forest and our hands in the city. Clear. It may look like you're working for a company, but who are you really working for? Shri Krishna. It may look like you're tending to your family, but who should you really be feeling you are tending to your family for? Shri Krishna. By doing so, one will start to feel one's own heartbeat is not one's own, but rather is Shri Krishna's. Niketa means to live. Right now I feel my heart is living in this body, but one will start to feel that Shri Krishna lives in this heart. And once you taste that, it will make sense that Shri Krishna is described as Aniketa, the one who has no specific home, but lives in all homes. The theme of chapter 12 is devotion. Another word for that is dedication. To be dedicated to all, the way Shri Krishna is dedicated to all. This is a expression of growing from me to me in he to just he. The self-absorbed person thinks living is just about me. When you practice bhakti, you start to feel the me in he, and the fulfillment of bhakti is Bhagwan. Just he. And Shri Krishna shared this in verse 9. Practice. Practice growing out of being self-absorbed. Practice being devoted, dedicated. This theme will come up again and again and again about practicing. And so this is not just philosophical. I had zoomed into what practice can mean. It can mean unitasking. Unitasking is a way of practicing no other, or ananya. And then I zoomed into this more. A way to practice unitasking is to use a planner, so that your mind is locked into the where and the when, so you can focus on the what. Abhyasa yoga. How do you know that you're engaged in this? You are finding ways to practice rather than not practice. You're not making excuses. Shri Krishna is most loving. This is clear. His love for us is explained even more in verse 10. Abhyase pyasamartosi matkarma paramo bhava madartam api karmani kurvan siddham avapsyasi. Joy. Prince Arjuna, if what I've shared from verses 2 through 8 is difficult, Shri Krishna shares in verse 9, practice. Practice makes that which is difficult less difficult. Now, if practicing is difficult, Shri Krishna gives verse 10, Abhyase api asamartaha asi. If you feel that you're not capable of practicing, you find practicing is difficult. That's the first quarter. Now, I want us to be clear here. Whatever you don't practice will always be impractical. Think of this logically. If you never practice cooking, isn't cooking impractical? If you don't practice driving, driving is impractical. So we shouldn't share that everything is difficult. You will only know that if you practice. But if you don't practice, even to gauge that this is difficult is not accurate. And I'll hit us harder with this. The most impractical way to live is to live unhappily. As we think of practice, it is impractical to live with stress, anxiety, dejection. One is alive, but one is not living then. So whenever this word practice comes, really ask yourself, are you practicing? Are you practicing being happy? If I am practicing, but this is difficult, what should I do? Mat, that is Shri Krishna. Karma, our actions. Parama bhava, to feel your actions are for Shri Krishna. Verses 2 through 8, this is bhakti. If this is difficult, verse 9 says practice. If verse 9 is difficult, Shri Krishna is taking a section of practice, and that is to act for him. He, mat, parama, is the end. This is not a new teaching. This really is the expression of chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita. And here we're on chapter 12. Why is Shri Krishna sharing this again? Because maybe he knows that we say one thing, but we feel another thing. We say all we do is karma yoga. We say all we do is seva. But is our bhava matching suit? Yesterday, in our Bhagavata class, I had asked everyone, how do you know what your purpose is? And most of the discussion came back with, when we're with our guide, when we're with our map, then we know what our purpose is. And I shared, you're not personalizing this enough. You know your purpose based on what you're becoming. That's the proof. That's the evidence. If my purpose is to be an athlete, but I'm not becoming physically more adept and in shape, then that's not my purpose. So if I don't feel that Sri Krishna is living in my heart more, living in your heart more, then I'm not practicing karma yoga. I am not practicing he is the end. Okay. Chapter 12 is very much about not self-criticism, but self-forgiveness. But if you engage in self-forgiveness in the wrong way, then that leads to complacency. Madartam api karmani. When your artha, your purpose, mat, is me, and karmani, in all of your actions. He's repeating himself. Artha, the definition of this is meaning or purpose. The more meaning you have to your karma, the word karma changes into responsibility. If what I do is meaningless, I never call it my responsibility. I call it boring. I call it robotic. But an even better feeling than responsibility is opportunity. When I find so much meaning in what I do, it's not even a responsibility, it's an opportunity. An opportunity for me to practice being happier. How many of you have watched the show The Office, the American version of The Office? Sheila introduced me to this show, and in a recent episode, there's a couple that's not getting along with each other. So they're going through marriage counseling, and one of the messages from the marriage counselor is, whatever's not going right, call it an opportunity. But it's a right mindset, right? If it's not going well, call it an opportunity and you'll feel differently about it. Yes. So is meaningful mornings your karma or your responsibility or your opportunity? It's our labor, Vivekji. The last quarter, kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. By doing this, by feeling your actions are for me, that I'm the ends, avapsyasi, you will attain or you'll become siddhim. You'll become powerful, you'll become peaceful. This is such a great connection of practice makes perfect. The word abhyasa and siddha are both used here. And to really make sure that we're clear that this is not new, in chapter 3, it was verse 20, where Sri Krishna shares that Raja Janaka and others became perfect through such practice. That precedent is shared. Giving you a final reflection on this verse. In our Practices to Perfection course, one of the tactile narratives given is, whatever you do, before, in the middle, and at the end, chant yours. The Sanskrit is chant samarpayami, that I am driving for you, I am bathing for you, I am eating for you. Samarpayami, this is for you. So think about this verse relating to that practice. Chanting samarpayami and feeling samarpayami, are they aligned? From inspiration to application, your recent application was to rate your abhyasa. How many of you are happy with how much you practice in your life? How many of you are neutral? How many of you are unhappy with how much you're practicing? Okay. Seems like 25%, 25%, 50%. These ratings seem very extrovert, but it's just a technique in engaging in swadhyaya, getting to know yourself more. The more swadhyaya you engage in, the less these teachings stay intellectual. An intellectual person will say, yeah, I'm trying my best. But if you engage in swadhyaya, then you may have your hand up for, I can try more. Clear? Here's your application for this morning. Before you engage in any verb, chant, Krishnaya iti samarpayami. So when you have breakfast, Krishnaya iti samarpayami, this is for you, this is for you, this is for you. Shanti, shanti, shantihi. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be joy.